He left his small village for the city, chasing dreams of a better life. But in a place where everyone seems to have it all, how much will he sacrifice to belong? A simple curiosity leads him down a path where innocence becomes a trap. The price of success isn't always what you expect, and some doors, once opened, can't be closed. He stepped off the bus, his heart pounding with excitement. His eyes scanned the towering skyscrapers that loomed above him, their glass facades reflecting the harsh sunlight like cold mirrors. Everything here was so different, so much bigger, faster, and louder than the small village he'd left behind. The noise was constant, the streets crowded with people who walked with purpose, their faces blurred in a hurry he couldn't understand. He couldn't help but smile as he clutched his suitcase, feeling the weight of the life he had left behind. His parents, the fields, the simplicity of everything he knew. In the city, there was no room for simplicity. Here, success was measured by what you wore, who you knew, and how much you could earn. His dreams had always been simple. A good education, a better life for his family, and enough money to escape the cycle of farming. But now, those dreams felt small. He was here for more. Here to become someone. The college was just as he imagined. Huge, with marble floors and classrooms filled with students who looked like they belonged. The sharp contrast to his village life couldn't have been starker. He fumbled with his schedule, feeling his stomach twist with nerves as he navigated the halls. Everything seemed to move faster here. The students, dressed in the latest fashions, spoke in accents he barely understood, using words he'd never heard before. And they weren't interested in him. Not really. He tried to blend in. He smiled, nodded at strangers, and joined groups of students during lunch, desperate to make friends, to feel like he belonged. But even in the bustling crowd, he felt invisible. His accent gave him away, his clothes looked out of place, and his wide-eyed wonder only seemed to amuse the others. He was the country boy, too naive, too innocent. Some laughed behind his back, others joked openly about his ignorance. But he smiled and tried to laugh along, unwilling to admit how much it hurt. The days dragged on, each one a repetition of the last. He woke up early, attended classes, tried to understand the lessons that were far more complicated than the simple textbooks back home. The city felt like a maze he couldn't quite navigate. He wanted to be a part of it, wanted to understand how it worked. But for every step he took toward fitting in, there were two that pulled him further away. The loneliness grew heavier as time passed. The boy began to notice the way people moved, always looking straight ahead, too busy to acknowledge the unfamiliar face. In the small village, everyone knew each other. People had time to stop and talk, to help one another. But here, no one had time. His hands clenched around his backpack as he stood in line at the cafe, feeling the cold stares of students who passed by without so much as a glance. But then, one day, as he sat alone at lunch, something changed. A group of students, who had initially ignored him, approached him. They smiled and introduced themselves with names that felt foreign in his mouth. Their clothes were fashionable, their laughter easy and confident. They asked where he was from, what he thought of the city, and for the first time, the boy felt like he was being seen. He smiled back, eager to prove that he wasn't just the country boy anymore. He began to join them more often, sitting with them during lunch and chatting after class. They weren't the closest of friends, but they accepted him in a way the others didn't. It was enough. For a brief moment, the boy felt a spark of hope. Maybe he wasn't as out of place as he thought. Maybe the city wasn't so cold after all. But even with this new group, there was a nagging feeling in the back of his mind, a sense that things weren't as they appeared. The group, though friendly, was always a little distant. He wasn't quite sure how to describe it. They joked about the things they did on the weekends, the places they went, the people they knew. Some stories were funny, others strange, But in every conversation, there was always an underlying sense of mystery, a feeling that they were somehow more experienced than he was, more worldly. They had a way of laughing at his questions, of explaining things in ways that left him feeling more confused than before. One afternoon, as they hung out in the student lounge, the boy overheard something that piqued his curiosity. One of the girls, laughing, mentioned something about making money online. He didn't think much of it at first, but as she continued talking about websites where people earned money from selling feet pictures, something stirred inside him. He didn't understand it, didn't even know how it worked, but it seemed too easy, too simple to ignore. His mind raced. Money. Fast. Easy. A way to make a living. He thought back to his parents, to the life he left behind. He could help them. He could send them money, and maybe, just maybe, he could live the life he had always dreamed of. The idea haunted him. The boy couldn't stop thinking about it. Days passed. But the idea of making money from selling feet pictures lingered in his mind. He had heard about it on social media, seen glamorous reels where people claimed they earned thousands, living in luxurious apartments and driving expensive cars, all because of something as simple as their feet. It didn't make sense, but it intrigued him. Was it real? Could he really make money like that? Each time he saw his friends laughing and joking, there was a part of him that longed to be part of that world. The world where money came easily, where everything seemed effortless, and where people lived without worrying about survival. The boy remembered his parents, their tired eyes after working all day in the fields, their hands rough from years of labor. His mother had always told him that hard work would pay off. But here, in this city, he was beginning to wonder if there was a quicker, easier way. That evening, as he sat alone in his small dorm room, he stared at his phone. The screen flickered with images of influencers, posing in expensive clothes, laughing beside sleek cars, and towering buildings. The boy scrolled through endless feeds, seeing people his age living the kind of life he had only ever dreamed of. It felt so out of reach. Yet, here was this one opportunity. This one idea. That might just be the key to changing everything. He hesitated, fingers trembling slightly as he tapped on the website link his friend had mentioned. It opened into a plain, unassuming page. A platform where people uploaded their pictures in exchange for money. His heart raced. This could be it. This could be his chance to send money back home. To show his parents that he wasn't just another dreamer. He could be someone. Someone with power. Someone with money. But as he scrolled through the website, his excitement began to give way to doubt. The pictures were intimate, personal. Could he really do this? The voices of his parents echoed in his mind. Hard work. Stay humble. Respect your body. Yet, deep inside, something urged him to take the leap. He closed his eyes, shaking off the doubt, and decided to ask his friends. The next day, during lunch, he casually brought it up. So, about that feet thing, he began, nervously fumbling with his fork. How exactly does it work? Is it really that simple? The group fell silent for a moment, their eyes flicking to one another. Then, one of the boys, Ravi, the most confident of the group, leaned forward, a smirk tugging at his lips. It's easy, Ravi said, his voice casual. People just upload their pictures. It doesn't take much, really. And the money? It's not bad. Some people make a living off it. The boy nodded slowly, unsure if he was convinced. But Ravi's confidence made it sound harmless. It didn't seem like a big deal. Everyone was doing it after all. Right? You should try it, Ravi added, almost with a laugh. Who knows? Maybe your feet will get you rich. The group laughed, and the boy forced a smile. But deep down, a small flicker of unease sparked. Something about the way they laughed, the way Ravi spoke about it so easily, didn't sit right with him. Still, the boy pushed the feeling aside. What did he have to lose? "I think I will," he said, trying to sound confident. "I could really use the extra cash." Ravi grinned. "That's the spirit. But if you want to go all in, you should check out some special sites. I know a place that's perfect for people like you." The others chuckled, but the boy didn't notice the mischievous glint in Ravi's eyes. He was too focused on the idea of the money, the possibility of a better life. Ravi leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Dark web, man, you get to the real money there. Forget the mainstream stuff. It's different. You'll see." The boy blinked, confused. "The dark web?" Ravi nodded. "Yeah, it's like an underground internet. You can find everything, anything you want, but it's not for everyone. You'll need special software to get in." The rest of the group looked on with half-amused expressions, as if they were letting Ravi lead the conversation for fun. But the boy didn't laugh. He was too absorbed by the idea. The dark web? It sounded mysterious, forbidden, and dangerous. But something about it called to him. "Where do I find it?" the boy asked, his voice almost a whisper. Ravi smiled. "I'll send you the link. Don't tell anyone, though. It's not something you talk about openly. But if you're serious, it's where the real deals are." That evening, the boy sat alone in his room again. His phone buzzed. A message from Ravi. A link to the dark web. His hands shook as he clicked it. The screen flashed black for a moment, before it opened into a new world. A world that didn't belong in the light of day. It was raw, unfiltered. A place where nothing was off limits, where everything had a price. His heart hammered in his chest, but his mind was made up. This was it. The easy way to get the life he always dreamed of. The boy couldn't shake the image of the link he had clicked earlier. It lingered in his mind like a shadow, stretching longer as the hours passed. He couldn't sleep. His mind raced with questions. About the dark web, about what his friends had said, about what he had just stumbled upon. He had always believed in hard work, earning what you got through effort and perseverance. That was how things worked back home, in the small village he had grown up in. But the city? The city was different. A place where shortcuts seemed to be everywhere, where people didn't just work hard. They found ways to make their dreams come true without breaking a sweat. It was all about connections, opportunities, and risks. He stood by the window. The night air was cool against his skin. As he watched the city below, the lights glittered like stars, and for the first time he felt how small he truly was. Small, insignificant, a drop in the vast ocean of the city. Everyone here was chasing something more than he had ever imagined for himself. He had come here to become someone. But now, he felt the weight of his own loneliness, the gnawing feeling that he wasn't enough. "Is this what I have to do?" he whispered, staring at the dark screen of his phone. "Is this how I prove I belong?" His friends, the ones who had pointed him in this direction, had already moved on. They had no idea how deep the hole they had dug was. They had laughed, teased him, offered advice that felt more like a dare than a suggestion. They were playing. And he was standing on the edge of something he wasn't sure he was ready for. But the whispers of the city called to him. They told him, nothing comes without sacrifice. To climb, you must leave behind what you know. Maybe this wasn't the right way, but it felt like the only way. What did he have to lose? With trembling fingers, he opened the link again. This time there was no hesitation. He clicked through the pages, names, prices, accounts, all of it designed to lure him in. It was so simple. Just take a few pictures, upload them, and wait for the money to come in. Just a few pictures. It wasn't illegal, just unconventional. He was just trying to survive. He started to think about his family, the luxuries they could have, a new house, fancy clothes, a better future. They deserved it. They had worked too hard to see him struggle. This would be the shortcut, the one that would finally bring them everything they'd ever wanted. A sickening excitement stirred within him as he filled out his profile. The money he could make, the life he could give them. Everything seemed so close now, a dream within his grasp, but it also felt wrong. A coldness crept into his chest, a knot of fear and unease that refused to be ignored. He closed his eyes for a moment, but the images wouldn't go away. The flashing lights of the city, the glimmer of wealth and success, all within reach. But at what cost? What was he giving up just to be someone else? To escape the life he knew? A notification pinged on his phone. It was a message from Ravi. "Hey, ready to take the next step?" The boy stared at the words, his heart racing. The weight of the decision pressed on him, like a door slowly creaking open. Behind it lay an unknown, a world he couldn't yet see but knew was waiting for him. As the boy looked at the message, something shifted. He realized the next step wasn't just about earning money. It was about crossing a line he couldn't uncross. And once he crossed it, there would be no turning back. The boy sat there for what felt like an eternity, staring at the message from Ravi. His thumb hovered over the screen, uncertainty flooding his thoughts. This was it. The moment where he either turned back or walked deeper into the unknown. What if this is the wrong choice? What if I ruin everything? But then he remembered why he was here. His family, his dreams, the life he had always wanted. It all seemed so close now. He'd never been one to shy away from challenges, to retreat when things got difficult. No, he wasn't going to back out now, not when everything he had ever wanted was within reach. He swallowed hard, typing out a quick reply. "Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this." A few seconds passed before Ravi's response appeared. "Great. I'll send you the link. Don't worry about the rest. It's simple. Just follow the instructions." The boy's pulse quickened as he clicked on the link. It led him to another page, darker than the last. Cryptic messages, detailed instructions, terms he didn't fully understand. But at the bottom of the page, there it was, a box where he had to upload his first pictures. He hesitated, staring at the screen. This was it. This was the moment he would make his mark. He thought about all the stories he'd heard, people who had made their fortunes overnight, people who had found the shortcut to success. And now, he had found his. He took a deep breath and turned on the camera. His hands shook as he positioned his feet. He tried to remember what the site had told him about lighting, about angles. Click. The first photo felt strange, like crossing a line he could never uncross. Click. Each shot made him feel more uneasy, more distant from the person he had been just a few days ago. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. Once the pictures were uploaded, a confirmation email arrived almost immediately. His heart skipped a beat. That's it? That's all it took? He quickly checked the account balance. $100. Just like that. A cold chill ran through him as he stared at the number on the screen. The weight of the money felt wrong, unnatural, like it wasn't supposed to be his. But it was. He had done it. The impossible had become real, and now he could give his family what they deserved. As the day wore on, unease began to gnaw at him. He couldn't focus in class. His friends' jokes about the dark web seemed distant. The tension in his chest only grew. That night, his phone buzzed again. It was Ravi. "You did great. There's more to come. Just remember, don't overthink it. Keep going and you'll see the rewards." His fingers trembled as he read the message. It sounded innocent enough, but something about the tone unsettled him. Too casual, too eager. He pushed the feeling aside and went to bed. But sleep didn't come easily. He tossed and turned. The images wouldn't leave his mind. The photos he had taken. The money that had appeared so easily in his account. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt trapped, like he was caught in a dream he couldn't wake up from. In the silence of his room, the phone buzzed again. This time, it was a notification from the website. Without thinking, he clicked on it. A new message popped up. A request. Someone wanted more pictures, and there was a price attached to it, higher than before. He stared at the number. A knot tightened in his stomach. This wasn't just some random request. This was someone watching him. Someone who knew his name, his profile, and now, even what he was willing to sell. Something inside him shifted. What have I gotten myself into? But before he could dwell on it, another notification appeared. Then another, and another. The requests kept coming, fast, urgent, different people, each willing to pay more, each message pulling him deeper. The boy stared at the screen. His resolve began to weaken. The money, the thrill, the desire to escape his past was so strong, he couldn't stop. He couldn't say no. The boy couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping away from him. He had crossed a line, maybe not a visible one, but it was there, lurking in the shadows. The money was easy to ignore at first, just a small thrill. But now, as the requests flooded in, the thrill turned into something more. A need, a hunger. Each message felt like a small piece of power, and the more he earned, the more he wanted. He couldn't sleep, not for days. Every time he closed his eyes, his phone vibrated, each buzz a reminder of the life he was building on the dark web. His days blurred into nights. Classes, meals, and moments with his so-called friends lost their meaning. He was always thinking about the next picture, the next request. He started to check the site constantly, even when he was supposed to be studying or sleeping. Soon, the money became irrelevant. It wasn't about the cash anymore. It was about the validation, the constant affirmation that he was someone important, someone desirable. There were always more requests, always more money to be made. But at the same time, there was always that creeping sense of wrongness, a constant nagging feeling deep in his gut that he couldn't ignore. One evening, as he was sitting in his dorm room, his phone buzzed again. Another request, but this one was different. It wasn't just a price for more pictures. It was an offer. A person named Client 001 wanted to meet. The boy hesitated, a chill running down his spine. The message was simple. "We can help you make more. Come to us. You know you want this." He felt the pull, a magnetic force that made him want to ignore every warning sign. This was the chance to take everything to the next level. His pulse quickened as he stared at the message, his finger hovering over the screen. But the second he clicked the link, a feeling of dread flooded his veins. The link led him to a new, encrypted site. A private chat room filled with usernames that had no faces, no identifying details. There was no way back now. Every part of him screamed to turn off the phone, to close it, and forget everything. But he couldn't. The chat room filled with voices, all speaking in code, discussing details he didn't understand at first. One message stood out. "Once you're in, you're part of the family. Welcome." The boy felt sick to his stomach, but the overwhelming desire to be part of something, anything, pushed him forward. The anonymity, the secrecy, it all felt like power. A part of him realized how far he'd fallen, but it was too late. He had already given in to this world, and now it was pulling him deeper. He scrolled through the messages, each one urging him to take more risks, to give more of himself. There were whispers of illegal deals, of dark transactions that promised unimaginable wealth. But the price for this world was clear: his innocence, his morality, his very soul. As he continued reading, his phone buzzed again. It was Ravi. "You've made it, haven't you?" the message read. "It's just the beginning. Don't worry, you'll do great. Just remember the rules. Don't trust anyone, and don't look back." The boy read the message over and over, the words sinking deeper into his mind. Don't look back. It was as though Ravi knew what he was thinking, knew the exact moment when the boy was beginning to question everything. He felt a growing sense of paranoia. Who was he really talking to? What did they want from him? Was Ravi just as deep into this as he was? Or was Ravi the puppet master, pulling the strings, pushing him further into a world where there was no escape? The boy's fingers shook as he set the phone down. He stared at the walls of his dorm room, the silence loud in his ears. He had crossed the line. There was no going back now. His life was no longer his own. It was being shaped by the dark world that had consumed him. The boy sat motionless in his chair, staring at his phone as if it had become a lifeline he couldn't let go of. The glow from the screen lit up his face in the darkness of his dorm room, casting long shadows on the walls. He should have been studying, should have been focusing on his future. But instead, he was pulled into the web, into the messages, the requests, the dark promises. The constant notifications had become a symphony of dread and temptation. With each passing day, it was harder to ignore the pull. The money, the thrill, the secret world he had uncovered. Each one fed into his need to escape the small, simple life he had left behind. The life that had been so ordinary, so predictable. Here, in the shadows of the dark web, he was someone important, someone desired. But the more he immersed himself in this new world, the more the guilt gnawed at him. The people who had once cheered him on, his friends and family, seemed like distant memories now. No one knew what he was doing. No one would ever understand. They couldn't. He was too far gone. The messages from Ravi had become more frequent, pushing him to go further. He had taken the first step, but there was always something more. And each time he complied, it felt like another piece of his humanity slipped away. "You're doing great," Ravi had said in his latest message. "You're one of us now. Keep it up." It felt wrong, but at the same time, there was a strange exhilaration that filled him. He had become someone in a world where power and money spoke louder than anything else. His mind spiraled. If he could just make enough money, everything would change. His family would be proud. They would never have to struggle again. But as he followed the instructions and uploaded more pictures, more personal details, something started to feel off. The money he was making wasn't enough anymore. He needed more. Needed to prove to himself that he was powerful, that he was worthy of the life he had always dreamed of. And the requests just kept coming, each one more urgent, more demanding. One night, as he sat alone in his room staring at his screen, he received a new request. A higher price, more dangerous, more personal. The message was short, but it was all he needed to see. "We want something more. You know what we need. Don't disappoint us." The boy froze. He had never been asked for something like this before. It was a challenge, one that threatened everything he had built. His mind raced, uncertainty flooding his chest. He couldn't go back now. The money, the power. It was all too much. But this was different. His fingers hovered over the screen, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. His eyes flicked to the clock. Late. Too late to think rationally. He had already made so many decisions he never thought he would. What was one more? Don't disappoint us. The words echoed in his mind, and with a trembling breath, he clicked the button. He couldn't stop now. He was too deep. As the transaction processed, he felt a sick, hollow satisfaction in his chest. The money was already being deposited into his account. He had done it. But as he sat there, alone in the dark, the weight of what he had just agreed to crushed him. The feeling of wrongness, the feeling that something irreversible had just happened, settled into his bones. He could hear Ravi's voice in his head, the words that had been so comforting before, now twisted and taunting. "You're one of us now." The boy leaned back in his chair, numb. It was all so easy now. But he knew, deep down, this was just the beginning. There was no turning back. The dark web had claimed him, and it wouldn't let go. The boy's heart raced as he sat in his dimly lit room, staring at the glowing screen. The notification from the dark web popped up again, its chilling prompt glaring at him. A new request. He clicked on it, half expecting another simple task. But what he saw made his stomach lurch. The message was cryptic, almost too much so for him to fully understand. But it was clear enough. We need more. It's time to prove your commitment. His pulse quickened. He wasn't sure what they meant by prove your commitment, but Ravi's words echoed in his mind. Keep going, and you'll see the rewards. The boy swallowed hard and read the message again. It wasn't just about the money now. It was about something bigger, something darker. The request seemed simple at first. Upload more pictures. This time, show more. There's a higher price for those who go further. He was no stranger to the growing requests and increasing pay, but this felt different. It felt dangerous. His hands trembled as he typed back, unsure of how to proceed. What do you mean by show more? He waited, his breathing shallow as he stared at the message. A few minutes passed, each second stretching endlessly. Then, another notification pinged. You know what we mean. Don't waste our time. This is your chance to make it big, or walk away. The choice is yours. The boy felt his stomach drop. He had never imagined that a simple decision to make money could lead to something like this. What was he being asked to do now? Ravi's words whispered in his mind again. You'll be amazed at what's waiting for you. He realized with a sinking feeling that whatever this was, it wasn't just another picture or another harmless request. He glanced nervously at his phone again. There was something about the way the message was phrased, cold, direct, and final, that sent chills down his spine. But then his thoughts drifted to his family, his dreams, the life he had always wanted. It was all so close. The money, the success, the status, he could almost taste it. His grip on his phone tightened. Was this really so different from what he'd already done? He had already crossed lines he never thought he would. He had already stepped into a world where nothing was sacred, where the only thing that mattered was the reward at the end. A few more seconds of hesitation. His fingers hovered over the screen, feeling the weight of the decision bearing down on him. And then he typed, "Okay, I'll do it." Immediately, the screen refreshed with a new set of instructions. His heart pounded as he read through them. This was no longer just about taking pictures. No, the request had escalated. This time, the task wasn't just for his feet. It was for something more intimate, something that blurred the line of comfort and decency. He stared at the screen, his breath catching in his throat. His mind raced. This wasn't what he had expected. This wasn't a simple request for money anymore. This was a demand. A demand for something that felt like a violation of everything he once believed in. The boy's palms grew sweaty. He tried to convince himself that it was just a step, just one more thing. It wasn't too much. It was just another picture, just another step into the world he had been lured into. but his fingers froze. His mind screamed at him to stop, to close the laptop, to erase everything. But the pull of the dark web, the temptation of fast money, the lies he had been fed by Ravi, they were too strong now. He had already gone too far to turn back. He turned on his camera again. His hands shook violently as he positioned the lens. He was no longer the same person who had eagerly taken his first pictures. This felt wrong, but the fear of losing everything, of going back to the life of obscurity he had escaped, drove him forward. The boy clicked the camera. Then again. And again. Once he had taken the photos, he uploaded them, his heart hammering in his chest. A few seconds later, another notification came through. "Well done. We'll be in touch soon. Keep up the good work." He stared at the message, feeling a cold knot in his stomach. The money would come. He knew it would. But this wasn't what he had expected. This wasn't just some harmless side hustle anymore. He was in too deep. He stood up, feeling disoriented. The walls of his room seemed to close in on him. The quiet hum of the air conditioner sounded oppressive, suffocating. Every small noise seemed too loud. His mind raced in 100 different directions. But the only thought that was constant was one that terrified him. There's no turning back now. The boy's phone buzzed again. It was Ravi. "Nice work. Keep it up. You've just crossed into the real world. Let's see how far you can go." The boy's heart sank. He knew this wasn't just a warning. This was a declaration. Ravi's world was now his world. And in this world, there were no exits. Only more darkness. The boy's phone buzzed again in the stillness of his room, the harsh light from the screen casting long shadows across the walls. He had barely slept, but the exhaustion didn't seem to matter anymore. His mind raced, constantly replaying what had happened, what he had done. He had crossed a line he had never even seen coming. He checked his notifications. Another request. Another buyer. The amount they were offering was far more than he could have imagined. But this time, the message wasn't just about pictures. A name, an address, and a warning. "If you want to make more, you'll need to provide more." The boy stared at the screen, confusion flooding his thoughts. His heart pounded in his chest. What did they mean? What was this? The instructions were vague, unsettling. His fingers trembled as he typed a response. "What do you mean? What else do you want from me?" There was a long pause before the reply came. "You'll know when the time comes. We've given you everything you need to move forward." It didn't make sense. The boy sat back, his head spinning. But as much as he wanted to shut it all down, the allure of the money, the endless possibilities, kept him tethered. He couldn't turn back, not when everything he had wanted was so close. But the message haunted him. What did they want from him? The next few days passed in a blur. Every time he checked his phone, more requests came flooding in. With each request, the price grew. The buyers wanted more, wanted different pictures. At first, he thought they were just asking for more poses, more angles. But soon, it became clear that they were asking for things beyond what he was comfortable with. More intimate, more personal. The boy hesitated. He wanted to stop, but every time he looked at the money he had earned, a twisted sense of greed overpowered his fear. The money felt so good. It felt like the answer to every problem, to every dream he had ever had. He could give his family a life they never had. He could escape. The pressure was mounting, and with each click of the camera, he felt himself slipping further and further into something he didn't understand, something he feared. He was no longer just the innocent boy from the village. He was someone else now, someone the world didn't see, someone who had been taken in by the promise of quick success. And with each new request, with each new photo sent, he felt like a part of himself was being sold away. Late one night, as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the notification came again. The message from the same buyer. But this time, there was something different in the tone. "Are you ready to take the next step?" The boy's heart stopped. The dread that had been slowly building finally reached its peak. This wasn't just about pictures anymore. This was about something else, something darker. He stared at the message, frozen, too scared to move. He had reached the point of no return. He knew that now. The boy sat up in his bed, his breath shallow and uneven. The air felt heavy, suffocating, as if the shadows in the room were closing in on him. The message on his phone screen seemed to pulse with a sinister life of its own. "Are you ready to take the next step?" He tried to convince himself it was just another trick, another buyer trying to test his limits. But deep down, he knew this was different. The dark web wasn't a place of idle games. It thrived on secrets, on exploiting desperation, and he had given it all the ammunition it needed. Hesitating, he typed a response. "What do you mean by the next step?" Seconds ticked by like hours, the silence in his room broken only by the faint hum of his laptop. Finally, the reply came. "We've been watching you. You've proven you're willing to go further than most. Now it's time to prove your loyalty." The word loyalty sent chills down his spine. He wanted to block the buyer, delete the account, and run as far as he could. But the money, they had him by the throat with the money. He mustered enough courage to reply again. "What do I have to do?" This time, the reply came almost instantly, as if they had been waiting for him to crack. "There's a package on its way to you. Open it when it arrives. Inside, you'll find everything you need. Follow the instructions, and you'll be rewarded beyond your imagination. Fail, and we'll make sure your family learns everything." The boy dropped his phone, his hands trembling. The room felt colder now, as if the very walls were turning against him. He wanted to scream, but no sound escaped his lips. 2 days later, it arrived. A plain brown box, nondescript and unassuming, left on his doorstep. He stared at it for hours, the weight of its presence pressing on his chest like a physical force. When he finally opened it, his stomach churned. Inside was a small vial of dark liquid, a black candle, and a folded note. The handwriting was neat, almost elegant, but the words were anything but comforting. The ritual must be performed exactly as instructed. Midnight, tonight. No deviations. The success of this step will determine your place among us. The boy's pulse quickened as he scanned the instructions. It was a ritual, all right. A bizarre occult ceremony that involved the candle, the liquid, and his own blood. The final line made his knees buckle. If the ritual is not completed, the consequences will be irreversible. Midnight came faster than he anticipated. The boy sat on the floor of his small room, the candle lit and the vial open in front of him. The scent of the liquid was pungent, metallic, and it turned his stomach. The note had instructed him to pour the liquid into a circle, light the candle in the center, and prick his finger to let a single drop of blood fall into the flame. His hands shook as he held the needle to his finger. The fear of what might happen if he stopped was greater than his fear of the unknown. He pricked his skin, and a single bead of blood welled up. As it fell into the flame, the candle flickered violently. The shadows in the room seemed to stretch, warping and twisting into grotesque shapes. For a moment, the flame turned black, and the boy's heart nearly stopped. Then his phone buzzed. He nearly screamed, the sound tearing through the oppressive silence. The message was simple. "You've proven yourself. The next instructions will come soon." But as the boy stared at the screen, he noticed something chilling in his reflection on the dark surface of his phone. His eyes weren't his own anymore. They were darker, emptier. And he realized, with a sinking feeling, that the next step wasn't just about proving loyalty. It was about giving himself away piece by piece until there was nothing left. The boy sat in the dimly lit room, his face illuminated only by the cold glow of his laptop screen. His heart pounded as he read the message that sealed his fate. Tonight, your audience will see the real you. He knew what it meant. The vague demands had spiraled into something grotesque, something he couldn't ignore. The live stream was no longer about harmless photos or unsettling rituals. This time, they wanted his very soul on display. He swallowed hard, staring at the countdown timer on the screen. A cruel clock ticking away to the moment he would bare everything. His fear, his shame, and whatever shred of humanity he had left. The chat was already filling with comments, some mocking, some expectant. Among them, usernames he recognized. Ravi's. The realization hit him like a blow. Ravi had sent him a text earlier, one that at the time seemed encouraging. Don't let fear stop you from giving them what they want. It's all for the best. But now, as the boy scanned the list of viewers, he understood. Ravi wasn't just watching. He was part of this. His so-called friends weren't just idle bystanders. They were orchestrators, pulling strings behind the scenes, feeding him to the wolves for their entertainment. The camera went live, the red light blinking like a heartbeat. The boy's expression was hollow, his eyes lifeless as he stared into the lens. Every movement felt mechanical, every breath heavy with the weight of inevitability. As the stream progressed, the demands became more explicit. The chat was relentless, urging him forward. The boy's shadow flickered against the wall as he prepared for the final act. His hands trembled, but his mind was numb. When he turned to face the camera one last time, there was no anger, no sadness, just an eerie calm. The screen blurred as he moved out of frame, leaving only his silhouette visible. The audience watched, spellbound, as the shadow performed the final act. Then the screen cut to black. The silence was deafening.